Come with me, and you'll see a world of pure imagination. You know, I once spoke to Julie Andrews, and she told me, Indie Pride, you're destined to be the songbird of a generation. So I practiced, and I grinded until I perfected my craft. And now, I'm the best. Just like Slaanesh, who was revealed for the first time on Thursday. It should come as no surprise that I am exceptionally excited for our friends in pink and purple, because I am a devoted champion of the Dark Prince, and their roster, aesthetics, and playstyle speak to me on a spiritual level. So today we shall dive into the 6 circles of seduction and discuss the elements of the roster that have thus far been unveiled, and hopefully deal with a few misconceptions as well. Let me start off by saying I adore the fact that we are not being chained by any one singular edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. This universe simply has too many amazing artists over its life cycle to be stuck solely in 8th, and I say that as someone who thinks the 8th edition army books are some of the very best in the series. I think slavish adherence to any particular snapshot of this world would have done these models and this trilogy a disservice. So when we take a look at the Demonettes and Fiends and Great Unclean Ones drawing inspiration from modern sources while still incorporating elements from many years ago, I think it's that kind of melting pot of ideas and visual distinction that will help make the combined campaign truly legendary. Provided things go well on the gameplay side, of course, and that we don't have a Battlefield 2042 launch. Visually, the reveal for Slaanesh was stunning, but one turn that's been interesting for me to see develop over the last day or two has been the discussion about sex appeal and the attractiveness of these models. And I think this has been one of the most pervasive misconceptions about the Dark Prince and his armies, in that people think, okay, Slaanesh is the chaos god of sex, drugs, perfection, and rock and roll, and his demons are known for their ability to lure the unwary to their deaths with their otherworldly beauty and their rocking bodies and their sensual desires. And so ultimately, people expect demonettes and keeper of secrets to be kinda hot, like weird, confused boner hot, but still super attractive in some ways. Let me say right off the bat, if you're looking for voluptuous, bouncing racks of adult film stars, you've come to the wrong place. Brazzers is that way. Demonettes are based on corrupted elves, first and foremost, so they're not exactly known for being stacked in the first place. But no, the entire point of Slaaneshi demons is that the way they move, the way they fight, their precision and live explosiveness is attractive. The way they can dance through a battle line avoiding strikes and dealing death is enticing. The narcotic scent that follows their every step is provoking, but their true nature and their true form is warp-born. They are horrific abominations. They are not, in and of themselves, sexy creatures. They are ugly, they are hideous, they are evil, twisted monsters. And when they finally reveal themselves in the moments before the final strike, you would no longer have that confused boner. You'd be running and you'd be screaming, because what they have planned for you is not a fun time. Yes, they can temporarily take the form of hot elven waifus or any number of beautiful fey creatures, but that is not their true nature. And for battle, they would don their war aspect, because this is Total War, not Rule34.net. But for a good example, in the Blood of Anarion novel by William King, which is first in the Tyrion and Teclis trilogy, our favorite Keeper of Secrets changes its appearance numerous times throughout to better exert influence over the mortal cultists at his command. He had emerged from the group of 20 or so naked elves gathered in the Grove of Pleasure. Nikari wore the form of a beautiful elf maiden with hooves instead of feet and small curling horns emerging from her head. Her appearance and sensuous aura caused lust and a desire to obey in dedicated followers of the Lord of Pleasure. On another evening, Nikari wore the form of a mighty muscular human warrior with the head of a bull and the lower body of a horse. It allowed him to move quickly, and he enjoyed the sensation of being a quadruped. There was some element to it that he had always found stimulating. It was easier now to hold the shape for longer. He was growing accustomed to this reality and its restrictions. He was learning to use the flows of magic almost at will. But her true form is a horrific howling demon towering 20 feet tall, with 4 arms, a slithering tongue, and pincers that could slice a Land Raider Crusader in half. There's nothing hot about her at all. And yes, whenever we talk about Slaanesh, we're going to use he, she, and it interchangeably because gender is a rather irrelevant concept to its followers. But in most media and lore, Nikari, the Keeper of Secrets, is generally referred to as a he, so we'll probably stick with that for the rest of this video. Speaking of N'Kari, the Bane of Ulthuan, this is a creature that never had an official model, had very little in the way of official artwork, but nevertheless has left an indelible impact on the Warhammer world, and paved a path for some of the most ruinous demonic invasions in history, which is why we'll be focusing on them as our first legendary lord for the Dark Prince. But how did we know that was going to happen? We called that back in like 2017. Well, if you remember, 8th edition had a named Greater Demon Lord for every single Chaos God except Slaanesh. We got the Mask as a hero, but N'Kari was not present like Skarbrand, Kairos, and Kugath Plaguefather were in 8th edition. So how did we know he'd be the starting Lord then? Well, he was hinted at in the epilogues for Warhammer 2 campaigns, and as I said, there is no other Keeper of Secrets more important to the narrative of the setting. His stats have actually already been revealed to an extent, and we'll show that off in just a moment, but I want to set the stage for him with another excerpt from Blood of Anarion, because it shows how terrifying this creature would be to go up against, even for the best fighter in the history of the world. He caught sight of another gigantic figure slaying the last guardians at the doorway, beyond which Kalidor and his mages still struggled to maintain their spell. The warding could not stop it. The guardians weren't even trying to. They were throwing themselves willingly onto the monster's claws and greeting death as they would a newfound lover. There was something obscene about the way they went to meet their doom. Anarion's heart sank. He knew this four-armed creature. It had taken all his strength to kill it once, and now, here it was again. This was N'Kari, the Keeper of Secrets, one of the deadliest of all the servants of the gods of chaos, the leader of the forces of Slaanesh, Lord of Pleasure. She deciphered another of the words crudely written on the wall, smeared in blood and excrement. Her lips curled, her nose wrinkled. Slaanesh. The word was repeated again, mixed with other names now, and curses and imprecations. N'Kari was one of those names, an appellation almost as dreadful as that of the Demon Lord of Forbidden Pleasures. It belonged to the Keeper of Secrets, responsible for the devastation of Ulthuan in the Dawn Ages, a creature twice destroyed by the mighty Anarion and thought gone forever. N'Kari had returned. In the Great Hall, she found the remains of what might have been a demonic orgy or cannibal feast or some dreadful combination of both. Staked out in the middle of a curious ritual circle was the naked body of Fael, or at least something that might have looked like her, if her corpse had been desiccated and aged 1,000 years. It was a long time before she could think clearly and do what had to be done. So in those two excerpts, we see Anarion the Defender, the greatest anti-chaos champion ever, legitimately feeling fear when faced with this creature. And in that very fight, when Kalidor and his mages are finally creating the Great Vortex, N'Kari grabs his torso, crushes his breastplate, and breaks his ribs, sending him down the path that leads to his eventual death soon after. Now to be fair, Anarion decapitates Kairos Fateweaver, slices an Exalted Bloodthirster in half, and pulps N'Kari's heart back to back to back, all in a row, getting a triple kill on named greater demons. But the fact that N'Kari can mortally wound him, and ultimately becomes the great adversary of Tyrion, Teclis, and Malekith some thousands of years later, that should tell you all you need to know about how powerful this character truly is. And no one is on the level of Anarion the Defender, really. I mean, maybe a couple mages, but no one in terms of pure warrior status and fighting and dueling is on his level. So the fact that he got killed by him multiple times isn't much of a knock. The cool thing here is that we actually have his stats as well, or at least some of them. These were posted by CA on Discord a day or two after the trailer and could theoretically belong to an Exalted Keeper of Secrets, which we know will be at least one of the Lord choices for Slaanesh in Warhammer 3, but it's almost certainly N'Kari, and we can compare his stats to two other extremely powerful duelists as well, Tyrion on the left and Archaon on the right. Now this is not an apples to apples comparison, because Tyrion and Archaon stats are from in battle, where Martial Mastery and Frenzy are already active, while N'Kari's stats are from the main menu, where his passives would not be active yet, and we can't see his HP pool, but 70 MA, 60 MD puts him on par with the best duelists in the setting, and that's before we know anything about his abilities. 20% physical resist won't be enough by itself to keep him resilient in the face of tons of focus fire from archers, artillery, anything like that, and Sisters of Avalorn are going to absolutely demolish his soul if he gets netted in place. If he is rooted down in one spot, he will die very quickly with that big hitbox, and the fact that he has no armor and his physical resistance will be meaningless against magical attacks. But the fact that he has 100 speed with those kind of stats means he's going to be one of the most terrifying character killers in the setting, in this trilogy. And unlike Archaon and Tyrion, he actually has the mass to push through regiments and the terror to clear chaff quickly, which is exactly how you counter Archaon and Tyrion. You stuff them up with useless units that you don't care about losing. You feed them fodder, and they waste time dealing with all those meat shields, unable to effectively push through in the way a towering, terror-causing monster can, and then much of their dueling prowess is wasted. So cool, Archaon can hit for 1,000 plus when he's got Occam's Mind Razor and Slayer of Kings active, but he can't get on target because zombies are in his way. Not a problem for N'Kari. And remember, these are the stats of a caster lord mixing Lore of Slaanesh and Lore of Shadows together, most likely. That is disgusting. That is powerful. That is going to be one of the best lords in the entirety of this trilogy. In my humble opinion, you should be very afraid of what N'Kari the Keeper of Secrets will be able to do on the battlefields of Warhammer 3. So that is N'Kari. Expect him to have melee and leadership debuffs from some kind of gaze or narcotic musk on top of that. And let's use that opportunity to transition into the rest of the roster, which we won't spend much time on here, simply because we'll be able to cover it in a lot of other videos as well, and we'll have more details then. But for now, let's get a nice overview from Dark Chozo on Reddit, who gave us a nice picture of many of the revealed units on the Nurgle and Slaanesh side from the trailer, showing off their in-game models in comparison to their tabletop ones. So far, we've seen Hellstriders of Slaanesh, which are marauders on steeds, a dismounted version with their weird arm spears, some kind of bald elf chick herald that looks like all the statues we saw at the beginning of the trailer, and then the more obvious front and center stuff, like the Exalted Seeker Chariot, the Hellflayer Chariot, the Fiend, Seekers on Steeds, the Demonettes, and the Age of Sigmar-style Keeper of Secrets. As expected, essentially their entire demonic roster will be present on day one. But the obvious point to make here is that each and every one of them will be squishy, low armor, hyper-mobile, and armor-piercing, and those are the elements that characterize pretty much the entire roster. So very much a hit-and-run style faction, specializes in ignoring armor saves, being immune to psychology with the Mark of Slaanesh, because what terrors would you be afraid of when you're steeped in a cult like this one, and being able to prey on an enemy's back line. Keeping your ranged troops online and firing against this faction is going to be a goddamn nightmare. It's going to be like doing so against the Beastmen. Almost unfathomable. Like, if someone is good and wants to run down your ranged troops, they will do so in multiplayer, and even in campaign, I think keeping your stuff online against all these chariots will be kind of hard sometimes. Bit of a nightmare. So they have so many 100+ speed tools that can quickly flank, run down your ranged troops, and destroy them that I think it'll be really hard, but really fun to use when you're on the Slaanesh side. I am incredibly excited to see how these units play in Warhammer 3, and there will be lots more awesome stuff to cover in the next few weeks and in the run-up to Christmas. In the meantime, I'm going to try and shake this nagging cold, and I will see you all in the next video. Indie Pride, signing out for now. Have a good one, guys.